Tomorrow matters. You know that feeling. So tonight, for once, you did everything right. You went to bed early. Not because you were tired, because tomorrow can't go wrong. You close your eyes and nothing happened. You're still here, doing the math. If I fall asleep right now, that's 6 hours, 5.5, 5. The number keeps getting smaller, and the smaller it gets, the more awake you become. Here's what doesn't make sense. On any other night, you would have fallen asleep without thinking about it. Tonight you stopped scrolling, put the phone down, went to bed ahead of schedule, did everything you were supposed to do, and somehow, the harder you try, the further sleep gets. But why is tonight different? It feels obvious. You're nervous. Makes sense. Except you get nervous on nights that don't matter too and still fall asleep fine, and some of the calmest nights of your life happened right before something you couldn't wait for. Same racing thoughts. You were out in 10 minutes, so it's not nerves, not exactly. Maybe you're just overthinking it. Doesn't hold either. Some nights your mind won't quiet down, rehearsing conversations, worrying about tomorrow, planning next week, and you still fall asleep eventually. There's only one thing actually different about tonight. You need everything to go right. So what happens when people try harder to fall asleep? Daniel Wegner put that idea to the test. Some people were told, fall asleep as fast as you possibly can. Others, fall asleep whenever, no rush. With calm, easy listening playing in the background, the urgency actually helped. The people racing to fall asleep fell asleep sooner than the people who weren't rushing at all. But swap in marching band music instead. Loud, busy, something for the brain to chew on. And it reversed completely. Now the ones racing to fall asleep took longer than the ones who weren't trying at all. Effort didn't just fail to help, it made things worse, but only when the mind already had something to grab onto, which sounds a lot like tonight. The strange part is that most of it happens without you noticing. For most people, it starts with the clock. You check it, you put it down, 10 minutes later, you check it again on autopilot. Except it's not as harmless as it feels. People who keep glancing at the clock fall asleep slower than people who don't look at all, not because checking wastes 10 seconds, but because of what it does to your mind. Turns out Wegner had already stumbled onto this a decade earlier with a pretty wild experiment. He told people, for the next few minutes, don't think about a white bear. Ring a bell every time you do. The bell rang about once a minute. To avoid thinking about something, your mind has to keep checking whether you're thinking about it. The checking is the thinking. Now swap white bear for am I asleep yet? But sleep adds something the white bear didn't have, a countdown. 6 hours, 5, fewer than that. The clock isn't keeping you up. The countdown is. Ever notice how some things only work when you stop trying to control them? A parkour runner sprinting across a log pyramid without breaking stride. A girl chasing a double Dutch record, never missing a beat. As they say, just don't start thinking. There's even an old story making the same point. A centipede walked perfectly well her whole life until someone asked her which leg moves after which. The moment she tried to answer, she lost her rhythm. Your body still knows how to do this. It always has. Sleep was never something you had to make happen. It was something that happened, at least until you tried to help it along. But hold on. Did you actually decide to help? Or did something decide for you? Because that's a strange thing to sit with. There's really only one candidate for something here, your brain, which means if it can talk you into helping a process you never asked it to manage, which one of you is actually in charge here? And why does the brain reach for control in the first place? Turns out this isn't really about sleep at all. Under threat, people don't calmly weigh what's likely to help. They grab for control over anything they can reach, even when grabbing makes things worse. Researchers call it threat rigidity. The more something matters, the narrower and more forceful the response gets, whether or not that response actually works. It's the manager who micromanages hardest during the worst quarter, the parent who tightens every rule the week their kid pulls away. Not because control is working, because doing something, anything, feels safer than doing nothing. It's just what your brain does under pressure. Tonight, sleep was never actually a threat, but your brain didn't check. It just recognized the shape of something that mattered enormously and reached for the only tool it had. Watch it, manage it, don't leave it alone. so this was never really about sleep. And now, can you even trust your brain's verdict on how bad it really is? Because from inside the night, it feels undeniable. You remember every time you turned over, every time you opened your eyes, every stretch that seemed to last forever. But that isn't necessarily the whole night. That got me thinking about athletes. If anyone should know exactly what a bad night costs them, it's someone who has to perform the next morning. You'd think they'd have this solved by now. Years of experience, mental prep, all of it. And yet study after study finds the same thing. 6 to 8 out of every 10 will tell you they barely slept the night before a big competition. But when scientists actually put trackers on them, instead of just asking the next morning, plenty had slept a pretty normal night. The athletes weren't lying though. What they remembered was lying there, worrying, before they finally drifted off. Not the solid hours of sleep that came after. So that's strike one against your brain's version of tonight. And athletes aren't the only ones who panic about one night mattering this much. Students do the exact same thing before an exam. This time, researchers tracked sleep over the weeks leading up to the test, not just the night before. What actually predicted the grade was how students had been sleeping all along. One bad night barely made a dent. So back to the question. Your brain isn't just misjudging how bad tonight was, it's misjudging what tonight is even going to cost you tomorrow. Probably a lot less than it feels like right now. Here's the part I didn't expect. Even after you do fall asleep, tonight isn't quite like other nights. One study found that in the hour before an expected wake up, the body can already start releasing a stress hormone before you're even conscious of it. You've probably felt a version of this yourself, waking up right before the alarm, sometimes by minutes, on the one morning it actually mattered. That's not a coincidence. Something in you was keeping track the whole time. The same thing happens the first night sleeping somewhere unfamiliar. One half of your brain stays measurably more alert than the other, standing watch almost while the rest of you sleeps. So it's not just your imagination running the show tonight. Your brain was exaggerating the story. But your body probably wasn't making the whole thing up either. Somewhere underneath all the worrying and the clock checking, something in you may have actually been getting ready for what was coming. It wasn't just panic tonight. Some of it was probably real all along. Put it all together, and this is what actually happened. So here's the whole loop laid out. Your body picks up that tomorrow matters and starts bracing for it before you've even tried to sleep. That preparation shows up as alertness, which your brain reads as a problem to solve. Then comes the control, watching the clock, forcing effort, trying to manage a process that was never yours to manage. And that control is exactly what keeps the alertness going. Nobody designed it to work this way. It's just what happens when an automatic process runs straight into a system built for threats. There's actually a clinical name for a bad night tied to something specific like this: adjustment insomnia. It's recognized, it's common, and it's not a character flaw or proof you can't handle pressure. That's just what this particular loop looks like from the inside. Which means every part of tonight actually makes sense. Your body picked up the signal, your brain reached for the only tool it had. The tool made things worse. That's it. That's the whole night. None of it means something's wrong with you.